You can have all the right zoom range and good glass and everything, but if you have the wrong reticle in the wrong units or with the wrong markings, it can be the difference between being able to take a shot and not being able to take a shot. It's the one thing in a scope that no one ever agrees on.
Yeah, it's down to personal preference.
What might be like a favorite for a lot of people, someone else might hate, and that's okay. Hello and welcome once again to the Element Optics podcast. I'm once again with Peter from product development, my product development buddy. We work a lot together at Element.
Yep.
And we actually went out, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
We went out hunting, drove about 3 hours or so from where we are here in Mariestad, Sweden, sat in the cold, much colder than what I'm used to for a few hours, and unfortunately didn't get anything, but it just reminded me that there's a lot of thought that has to go into not only the design of a rifle scope and like what rifle scope to choose with what features, but in particular there's one thing in a rifle scope that is pretty critical when you're making a decision, and that's the reticle.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can have all the right zoom range and good glass and everything, but if you have the wrong reticle in the wrong units or with the wrong markings, it can be the difference between being able to take a shot and not being able to take a shot.
Yeah, and that's one of the parts that's like, it's quite hard to do a reticle that suits everybody.
Yeah.
And
100%. I mean, it's the one thing in a scope that no one ever agrees on.
yeah, it's down to personal preference.
It's personal preference. It's, it's very subjective, and what might be like a favorite for a lot of people,
Yeah.
someone else might hate, and that's
Yeah.
okay. That's why we offer a few variations,
Yeah.
because we're trying to cater for as many people as possible, obviously without having way too many variants and making it confusing. But yeah, in this podcast, I think we want to have the discussion about choosing a reticle, what you should consider when choosing a reticle, what reticles might be better options for certain objectives or certain
Yeah, it all
disciplines.
comes down to what will you be using it for?
Exactly. And I think to start off, we should probably go back and look at the history of reticles, because it started off as literally pieces of hair pulled across a disc and tied down to create a nice fine aiming point. And for a lot of people, that's all you need. Hunting in close quarters, some of the stalking we did a few days ago, we would have probably been fine to take a 100-year-old scope with simple crosshairs, provided it can hold zero, and we would have probably been able to shoot something just fine. But it started off as that, and over the last 100 plus years, it's just progressed into something that now we can do whatever we want with. The opportunities are endless, but sometimes you don't want it complicated. Crosshairs started off as piece of hair pulled across.
Yeah.
Moved on to wire reticles, which we still use in some of our scopes, and it's actually still the best choice for certain applications. But that's basically just a piece of metal that's cut out of a foil and stretched across a disc. And, now they're much stronger than they used to be. They used to not be able to handle recoil very well, and they would break.
Yeah.
But the modern day wire reticles are pretty good, and they allow for certain things. Like, for example, on our wire reticles, the reason we've chosen them instead of etched reticles is that we can run a fiber optic cable behind the reticle and have it terminate in the center, which for conditions like we were hunting the other day where it was very low light, the camera couldn't even pick up the animals that we were looking at.
Yeah.
A nice fiber dot reticle that's controllable will still give you an aim point and still allow you to shoot at an animal.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we use that reticle in the scopes that has fiber optic illumination, because we need to hide that cable behind the reticle itself.
Yeah, and an etched reticle, you can't do that.
No.
An etched reticle obviously has different strengths. You can have floating features.
Yeah.
Which you couldn't do with wire reticles. So, if you have like a Christmas tree, for example, and you have floating dots, that you can only do an etched reticle. And an etched reticle is basically like a glass disc that's has the reticle design etched into it, and then you'll have like reflective material that's placed on the inside the illuminated portions.
It's like almost like a powder.
Yeah, it's like a powder. I think it's like titanium dioxide or something, and then you'll have a LED light that shines onto it and it'll reflect back into your eye.
Yeah.
And that obviously opens the door for some
it allows
kinds
us
of
to
different
do
shooting.
like very, very detailed reticles.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the
and
big
choose
advantage.
what portion of it that we want illuminated, which, like for example, we hunted with the new 2-10 Theos, which is actually not really designed primarily as a hunting scope, but one of the useful features on it is that
bright illumination.
Yeah, that diffractive grating illumination, which is a little bit different to the normal etch and fill illumination, but we can still use an etched reticle.
Yep.
And that allowed us to have fine control over the center cross on that reticle. Zoom all the way out to 2 times when we were stalking through the forest. If a deer had shown up close, you could have shouldered the rifle and taken a shot.
Yeah, almost like a red dot.
Yeah, like a red dot or like an LPVO almost.
Yeah.
And then when we had that deer at 400 meters at 10 times, you've got a good optical system, but you've also got hold points and you've got fine aiming points.
Yeah.
And you would have been able to take that shot.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This time we didn't, just because it wasn't the right animal to shoot this time. But if it were, it would have been no problem with that reticle.
Yeah. Exactly. But so you get your types of reticles, and that's something that you need to think about when purchasing a scope. Like how important is a certain type of illumination?
Yeah.
If you're in, I would say, in low light conditions and you're hunting at close range, a fiber optic illumination is probably quite a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
Although you would have to sacrifice those, the fine line thicknesses and the floating features that you could have on an etch reticle, but it might be worth it in that case. So the type of reticle, type of illumination, you'll have to think about that. But I would say the more important thing is the reticle design and whether it's first or second focal plane. And we'll get into first and second focal plane a bit later. But the reticle design, let's look at a few different disciplines or uses of your rifle and where you might want certain reticle designs. And I think we should start with hunting, because that's probably the most diverse and the most, as you say, condition specific or subjective. And I'd probably start by saying that it's probably less important with hunting with regards to what units you have, all that, and simple is actually sometimes better.
Yeah.
So, if you're hunting in the eastern US, or if you're hunting here in Europe and it's a little bit flatter, your conditions are a bit tighter, and you're probably going to take a shot under 150 meters. You probably don't need
no, it's
a
not
lot of
very
marks.
necessary.
Yeah. And then you'd probably want a fine crosshair, maybe with some thicker features on the outside, we've got a duplex reticle in our gyroscopes. We've got the Raptor reticles, which are still fairly simple.
Yeah.
What's cool about the Raptor reticles is that they actually provide, it's uncluttered, it's simple, but you've got drop points that are not linear. So if you can imagine, we did the previous podcast on MRAD versus MOA, and an MRAD or MOA reticle will have even spaces between all the markings, whereas the Raptor reticle, each of those gaps gets progressively larger as you go down, and that's because a bullet slows down as it's moving and starts to drop more. And the whole point of the Raptor reticle is to try and match that bullet's trajectory so that at 200, 300, 400 meters or yards, you can be very close to those hold points. And I did a video a few years ago in New Zealand where I wanted to show how simple the Raptor reticle was to use for someone who didn't necessarily want to learn MRAD or MOA, which is, let's face it, it might be easy for us to understand, but for someone who's starting out, it's a lot to wrap your head around and a lot to get used to. And then you have to get a ballistic calculator, or you have to figure it all out. And sometimes it's easier just to pick up a rifle, find a reticle with a drop that's based on the cartridge that you have, do some quick validation, then go out and hunt.
Yeah,
and I
that's
was able
the
to go
whole
out.
idea with that scope.
Exactly.
Or that reticle itself.
Yeah, and I was able to go out and literally take a 6.5 Creedmoor, I think it was a Fierce rifle off the shelf, take a box of Hornady Precision Hunter 143 grain ELDXs, I think they were, which had the velocity on the box that we designed the reticle around at 10 times magnification. And we could put the scope to 10 times and literally range, okay, we were shooting, I think, Arapawa sheep, which was quite a unique hunt, but okay, there's a sheep at, 300 meters. Put on the 300 mark, boom, drop on the spot.
Yeah.
There's one at 400 meters, boom, on the spot, down. And it was really cool to see how simple it can be if you don't overcomplicate things.
Exactly.
And sometimes that's the best option, whereas like hunting, obviously here in Sweden, you might want something that's a bit less cluttered, but...
Yeah, I mean, most people, they don't do like long-range hunting, as mentioned in the previous episode. It's not very common here because the terrain itself doesn't allow for it.
Yeah.
But so most shots are between like 10 out to maybe 150, 200 meters. So there's no need to have advanced reticles because, a simple reticle works just fine. But what becomes more important, since we hunt a lot in like dawn and dusk, the illumination itself is quite important, I would say. So people appreciate illumination that allows, especially it needs to be dim enough, because if you're hunting in, low light conditions, the illumination itself can blind you if it's too bright.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one of the, like, not the most important thing, but it's still quite important, I would say.
Yeah, so to be very different to something that's made for like let's say the 2 to 10, where you're at 2 times, you're in bright conditions, you're shooting like a gas gun match, and you need that center mark to be like a red dot. Yeah. Hunting is not the same. So especially hunting, in these conditions where it gets like dark at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
So it's very different.
And that's also the reason why, a lot of people in Sweden and in Europe, they use like red dots for hunting. Yeah. Because it's enough. Because you don't need anything else when shooting at like 100 meters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so weird to me because I'm used to like hunting in more open terrain. Yeah. And I suppose like it's same in other parts of the world, in New Zealand in the mountains, or in, the western US where you're hunting in the Rockies, or in, you're hunting desert sheep, or you're hunting elk, or, more open terrain, longer distances. It's a totally different discussion.
Yeah, and the most effective like hunting form here is probably the driven hunts.
Yeah, and that's close. That's like point and shoot.
Yeah.
Whereas, then you definitely don't want like Christmas tree reticle.
Yeah, you don't have time to think.
Yeah, whereas where I hunt, or western US, it becomes very interesting. Mountain hunting rifles, you don't necessarily want a full-on PRS / long range Christmas tree reticle with everything in it.
Yeah.
But you want enough to be able to, you get a range. Maybe you don't have time to dull. Maybe you don't want to dull. So you're using a reticle. Maybe you're shooting at a steep angle, so you want to hold under, which is something not many people think about, but you might need to hold under at some point. Maybe you've got a strong wind and you're dialing for elevation, but you need a wind hold. And then suddenly, just having a few reference points close to the center of the crosshair, you're probably not going to be holding like 12 mils.
Then it's far.
not you're outside the realm of ethical hunting already, so it's unnecessary. There's no consequence for missing a piece of steel if you're shooting a long-range match.
Yeah.
But if you miss an animal, if you wound an animal, that's a different story. So hunting, like a mountain hunting reticle, is generally a bit less extreme. And that's actually where our MPR reticles come in, because we designed the APR family of reticles around like precision rifle, long-range shooting. They've got everything you need, but we saw a need, especially in our mid-power scopes. That's where MPR comes from, mid-power reticle, like the new 4 to 16 or newish 4 to 16 Helix Gen 2. Like, why not have something that's better suited to what people are using that scope for? And that's not precision rifle long range, it's not like super close range hunting, but it's something in between.
It's like a scaled down APR-1C reticle.
Yeah, it's
But
scaled
much,
down, it's
much simpler.
simplified.
Because you
A
don't need
smaller
all that
portion of the
information.
reticle,
Yeah.
exactly, a smaller portion of the reticle is illuminated. So if you want to just switch on that center cross, boom, you've got something that you can use at low zoom that will just show that part. It doesn't blind you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's a really good match for that type of scope.
Yeah, so it's like a step up from the BDC reticle, because even though the BDC works great, if you want to take those, precise shots at further distances, it's still, it's still better to use a mill reticle, because
exactly,
you can
because
be much more precise.
That's what you're, if you're using a ballistics calculator and you're plugging in your atmospherics and your wind and your angle into the ballistics calculator. Yes, I mean, if you really want, you can load like the Raptor reticle into the Element Ballistics app, and you can see where to hold. But it's much easier to have. You get a firing solution in MRAD or MOA, and you precisely dial it in to the nearest click, and then okay, I'm not guessing here. I don't, like the Raptor reticle, you can get those hold points pretty close.
It's good enough.
But not everyone's going to get it perfect, because everyone's rifle is different, or the conditions might change. And that's where having something that's based in MRAD or MOA.
Yeah, and if you're shooting at longer ranges, you will probably have time to do that, because the animal will probably not see you if you're like 300 to 400 meters away.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you got more time.
Yeah, and the BDC reticle, I would say, depending on how confident you are with your equipment, I wouldn't say it's suited for more than 300 to 400 meters.
Exactly. That's why we don't put it out to like kilometer. It's like, I would say 400 is probably 400, as far as you want to go.
Yeah, it's still very far.
That's still very far. Yeah. No, exactly. And then it's quite interesting. You're looking at, I'd say what we've probably been the most successful at Element is building scopes for more precision rifle / long range disciplines. I don't know if that's just because we have a bit more experience in that field, or maybe it's just because that's what we started with the original Nexus and Titan and everything. But the reticle choice for those disciplines is a little bit different. There, you sometimes want a bit more information. You might have a moving target at distance at a PRS match, or you might have a small target and you need like 1/10 or 2/10 of a mil for wind holds in your reticle.
Yeah, as well as if you want to measure the target, width of the target, for example.
Exactly, and then you want information. You don't want to. You almost err on the side of having too much information than too little, because you can't. You can always train your brain, I found, to ignore the reticle, and often you're actually using the center of the reticle anyway, which is often like a bit more open, just a center dot.
Yeah.
So you can kind of train your brain to cut out the noise, and just, you still see your target well, you still spot your trace well, and all that. But you don't want to be in a situation where you're lining up at a target and, you've chosen a reticle that's maybe like either the wrong units, like you don't want to have a BDC reticle, a PRS match, or you don't want a reticle that's got too coarse of adjustments, like a 0.5 mil spacing, and maybe like the MPR reticle would be the wrong choice for that, because you want finer hold points.
Yeah.
If you only have a 2/10 of a mil wind hold, you want that fine holding point so that you can get it exact.
And what many people probably doesn't know is nowadays most people use a ballistic calculator, but if you don't have that, you can actually, by measuring the width of the target, calculate that into the distance. If you know the width of the target in centimeters, let's say, and you take the width in mils, then you can use a formula to calculate the distance to the target.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, if you don't have a phone on you, it's quite useful.
Yeah, it's very useful. And even like calculating the speed of a moving target.
Yeah.
Like most Kestrels will have that calculator built in, and you can put in your distance, you can put in the span on your reticle that you want to measure, and then you start and stop the timer.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, you have 20 mils as your span. The APR reticle, let's say you have 10 mils this side, 10 mils this side, and you start the timer when the target passes this 10 mil mark, and then you end it when it's on this 10 mil mark. It's useful to have more points there, because the more that space is, the less important your perfect timing is,
Yeah.
and then you can get a better calculation of your moving target. You get
Yeah.
a more precise firing solution. Another thing that people don't think about is, when you're hunting, if you want to take a longer shot, as you say, the animals are often more calm,
Yeah.
so you have time. PRS match, they don't care. You still the same part time, no matter how far your targets are. So you might have a stage with many different targets, and you just physically don't have time to dial, because you might be changing your cheek weld when you dial, or you take your eye off the target, and going back and forth is time consuming because you have to get back on target. So you might want to hold instead, which is very common if you're under a lot of time pressure. So that's when the Christmas tree design comes in
very handy,
because you might it's not as simple as just dialing for wind and then holding, because as you go further out, your wind hold gets greater and greater. So you need a reticle with those Christmas tree hold points below the center.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can,
if you have a clean reticle and there's a lot of wind and the distance is long, you almost have to hold, you have
in
no
space.
reference. Yeah, in
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, you're trying to guess, trying to line up that with that, and
Yeah.
it's probably around there. And with the precision capabilities of modern rifles, and with the weight of a modern precision rifle and how steady you can get it, you're probably going to be shooting at a small target at distance anyway, so you don't want to be holding in space and just guessing. You're probably going to want like a reticle that's catered for that. So we can go a little bit into like the reticle options we offer and how we've named them, because we've tried to make it quite simple and not have hundreds of different reticle types.
Yeah, I mean we've chosen and made reticles that we prefer ourselves. Yeah. And we want to keep it quite simple and not have too many options. It should be like clear for the customer. Okay, this one I go for if I'm using it for hunting. If I'm doing target shooting, it's this one. So not having too many options sometimes is more convenient, I think.
Yeah,
and it makes it easier
and obviously
for the customer.
It's at the cost of sometimes there's something that people want us to offer that we don't have.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just the reality of
Yeah.
of making optics.
If we made all, like people's favorite reticles, it would be so niched and so.
Yeah, and even if we made them, there's no guarantee that the retailer wants to stock hundreds of different versions. They might say, that's silly, I'm only going to sell one or two of those, so I'm not even going to order that, and then you still sit without being able to get it.
So we try to make something that suits like most people.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we've mentioned the duplex reticle, simple crosshair on the RS 329.
Yeah.
And then we've got a number of Raptor reticles. Raptor stands for Rapid Trajectory. That's the BDC reticles, and I really think that's been a big hit with people. Like, it's one of our best-selling scopes, the Helix HD with that reticle, because it's so simple. It's not too complicated. It does work. It gets the job done within a reasonable hunting range. We have a few versions of that, like the Raptor 1S is the slightly simplified version that's in the RS 4 to 12.
Yep.
And then the 1F is the fiber dot in the 2 to 12 Helix HD compact. So if you're looking for something that, maybe you want that fiber optic dot, that 2 to 12 is a really good option. I think not many people know that has a fiber dot, but it's a really good scope to look at, I think.
It's a lot of scope for the money. I mean, it's a great price as well.
Yeah. And it's a simple scope. It's reliable because there's not much going on, so there's not much that can go wrong. And it's got that fun illumination control. Yeah. And then obviously, the Raptor 1, standard Raptor 1 on the Helix HD, which is very, very popular, which is a little bit different to the 1S and the 1F in that it's got a floating center dot, which some people like, but obviously that floating feature comes at the cost of not having a fiber dot.
And it's the magnification span 2 to 16, it's a very
So versatile.
So
Yeah, I mean,
that's why it's so popular, I think. That's a part of it, at least.
exactly. I mean, at 2 times you can hunt almost at like point blank.
Yeah.
At 16 times you can shoot, I would argue, any hunting distance. Even like what you'd consider long range hunting, like the guys who're shooting at like 600, 700 meters, probably wouldn't use the Raptor reticle for that. But the reality is, if you really wanted to, we've designed that scope with turrets that still have a good tracking precision. It still has enough travel. If you really wanted to, you can take that cap off and you can dial in a shot at longer distance and it would work perfectly fine.
Yeah, and I mean, even though it works great for, you know, a so different. It's not the best at anything, but it works for a lot of things.
Exactly.
So that's the purpose with it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we had in mind when we made it.
Yep.
Because it's probably, you know, if you're doing driven hunts, most people would probably want one, but the 2 to 16 still works great, and it works at the longer ranges as well. So
Yeah, and also, you know, most 1 to somethings, most LPVOs, you're talking a small objective.
yeah,
So when your light is low, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You're not going to see that well. Whereas the 2 to 16, you've got a 50 mil objective.
yeah,
So at 2 times, you're still getting really, really good
Yeah.
light transmission, and you're going to see everything. So yeah, it's a fantastic option. But yeah, back to the reticles. Next, you know, we try to keep reticles in families so that it's a little bit easier to differentiate between
yeah,
them. We've spoken about the Raptor. The MPR is somewhere in the middle. It's
Yeah.
a mid-power reticle,
yeah,
and then the APR was, you know, originally the all-purpose reticle, but I would argue that it's maybe more
towards
suited towards
sport
like
shooting
sport
or-
shooting, precision rifle, long range
Yeah.
shooting. And then within those, we've got like the D variants and the C variants.
Yeah,
Because we've, you know, some people like a more simplified, cleaner reticle. Some people like a reticle that's got a bit more information on it. So the C variant stands for clean. Doesn't have Christmas tree dots. You know, we're talking like in the mil reticles, you're talking a half mil increment instead of 2/10 mil increments. Whereas the D version is dirty, as in like complicated.
yeah,
And so it's really, you know, if you look at any of our reticles, if you see the C, you know, okay, that's the cleaner version. If you see the D, you know, it's the dirtier version. And yeah, I would highly recommend, if anyone doesn't know what reticle to use, first I would say you can, you know, look on our website or any of our retailers' websites, and they'll probably have the different reticle options on the product page, and you can look at what they have. But on our website, we also have reticle guides. You can see exactly what the reticle looks like at different magnifications. You can see the subtensions. It'll help you maybe gauge whether it's the right choice for you. But also, if you can get into a shop or store and look through the scope, that's really
that's
helpful.
probably the best option. I mean, especially if you're a new hunter, it's hard to know what to go for. You almost have to try it out to get to know what you like.
Exactly. And I think it becomes even more complicated when you talk about a first focal plane reticle, because
Yeah.
it's hard to like visualize with your brain what it's going to look like at different magnifications. A picture
Yeah.
doesn't do justice. And I think from here we should probably talk about the difference between first and second focal plane, because I mean it's vastly different, and the reticle design is different. It has to
Yeah.
be. So first focal plane, second focal plane, for those of you who maybe don't know, second focal plane is like the old traditional, the reticle looks the same no matter what zoom you're on. You zoom in and out, the image of your target gets bigger or smaller, but the reticle doesn't. And what second focal plane means is, you know, in the erector tube of a scope, you've got your front focal plane or first focal plane right below the turret in the front of your erector tube, and then behind that you've got your zoom lenses, and then you've got your second focal plane behind that.
Yeah,
So a second focal plane rifle scope, the zoom lenses are in front, so the image is zooming in and out, and only after that it's coming.
and you can see the whole reticle all the time.
Yes, you see the whole reticle all the time. That frees us up as far as reticle design. It's way easier to design a second focal plane reticle,
Yeah.
because you know, like, okay, we just make the reticle fine enough that you can see it, but it's not cluttering your target. Whereas a first focal plane reticle, which is the reticle that's in front of your zoom lenses,
Yep.
you're not just zooming in on your target, you're zooming in on your reticle too.
So you see less of the reticle as you zoom in.
Yeah, exactly. So as you zoom in, the reticle zooms with the image, and the relationship of the reticle and the image stays the same, which is, it's what you want for disciplines like precision rifle, long-range shooting, where you're changing your zoom all the time, but you still want to use those hold points in the reticle.
Yeah.
Because they stay true. 1 mil stays 1 mil because it's tied to your target. But the problem is, as far as reticle design goes and the usability of the reticle for the end user, when you zoom in, it gets thicker and it can look too thick.
Yeah.
When you zoom out, it can become too small to see. So it's
Yeah.
very difficult.
So it
to
needs to
get-
be thick enough at the lowest magnification, but still small enough to not cover too much of your target at the highest
Yeah.
magnification.
Exactly.
So-
So, yeah, it's very tricky to get that right. And you'll notice if you look at one of our APR reticles, one of the first focal plane APR reticles, you'll see that the numbers that we have coming towards the bottom of the scope,
Yeah.
they actually get bigger as they go down. And the reason for that is if you need to take a shot at long range and you want to hold, let's say you run out of elevation on your scope and you need to hold the rest,
Yeah.
you're going to have to zoom out to see those numbers. And if you zoom out, they're going to become too small.
Yeah.
So we have to make them bigger at the bottom. Whereas if you're using your numbers close to the center at long range, you can just zoom in
Yeah.
because you'll still see them when you zoomed in,
Exactly.
and then you can make them smaller. So we've tried to be smart about how we do things. But yeah, the dot thickness and the line thickness it's when we talk about reticle design, we're constantly going back and forth. We'll sketch something. We'll send the images to each other. We'll say, what do you think of this? Is it too thick? Is it too thin? We all give our feedback. We send to people to give their feedback. Then we make we actually have the tooling made for the reticle,
Yeah.
which, it's sometimes a scary thing because you pay money to have a reticle design made, and
you never know
and
until
you never
see
know
it in
until you
real life.
see it whether it's actually the way you want it.
Yeah.
And even if it's the way you want it, it might not be calibrated perfectly
Yep.
for the scope that you want to put it in. Then you got to pay for new tooling, and it can sometimes be a stressful and time-consuming process.
Yeah. And the calibration of the reticle is just as important as the tracking of the scope.
100%. Yeah.
Because
I mean, if you're holding 10 mils and your calibration is 5% off, it's not 10 mils that you're holding. It's something else.
Yeah.
So that's critically important. But yeah, second focal plane reticles, generally, as far as an aesthetics point of view, is much better because you can have it exactly the way you want it.
Yeah.
It's easy to get the line thicknesses right. Generally, more people are happy with the way it looks. Obviously, the weakness of a second focal plane reticle is that in order for those markings to be calibrated properly, they have to be at a specific zoom.
Yeah.
So if you're hunting, let's say we make a rifle scope for mountain hunting. Second focal plane, it's going to look good. But if you see an animal and in your excitement you forget to check your magnification,
Yeah.
you could hold on the reticle completely wrong because it's at a magnification that's not calibrated for what your units are in. And then that could ruin your hunt.
Yeah.
So that's something we think about when choosing whether to use first or second focal plane is what's going to be the best design for
this specific scope.
the
and
specific
what will
scope
people
for that
be using
purpose.
it for? Yeah.
Yeah,
And we always have to take into account if it is a second focal plane scope, where should we calibrate it? Should it be at 8 times magnification, 10 times?
Yeah.
So that's also a big part of it.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one because, for example, let's use the Helix HDLR or Helix HD, for example. With the Helix HD, that Raptor reticle is calibrated at 8 times for a 308. The reason it's not at 16 times is because you change your rifle, that those hold points are going to line up differently. If you have a rifle that shoots faster and the trajectory is flatter, you're going to need to zoom in to get it to match.
Yeah.
So as I said, 6.5 Creedmoor would be more like a 10 times it lines up.
Yeah.
My 22 to 50 is more like 12
Yeah,
or
we
14
need to have
times.
room for other calibers and other,
That's exactly it. So, And also, most of the time, you might not be hunting at 16 times.
Exactly.
You might want to zoom out, and then obviously your hold points become useless if you're at a magnification that's it's not calibrated for.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we some thought had to go into that.
Yeah.
Same with the HDLR. That reticle's calibrated at 16 times, but that is more the long range version. That's the high definition long range HDLR. So that has an MRAD or MOA reticle, a simple APR1C reticle, and that is calibrated 16 times because most people shooting at long distance are probably going to want to zoom in.
Yeah.
And you'll have more time. So you can zoom in, you can parallax, you can get prone, you can, get steady. You don't need that massive field of view because you've got time to find the animal.
Yeah.
Whole different ball game.
Yeah.
So we tried to cover as much as we can, but obviously there will be some disciplines and some styles of shooting that we haven't necessarily catered for yet. We might get there one day. We might decide that that's not in Element Optics DNA, or not something that we're experienced enough with to work on. But either way, we'd love to hear your thoughts. If there's any specific reticle design that you found really useful for the style of shooting you do, we'd love to hear what you think. Put in the comments down below, or leave a comment on social media. We always want to learn more about the people that we make scopes for. At the end of the day, we wouldn't be here without you guys, and it brings us a lot of happiness to work on stuff that we can get on the market and hear feedback of success stories that people have had because we've thought through things or because we've listened to someone's input. So yeah, go ahead and tell us. We'd love to hear it, and hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope you've maybe felt a bit more informed, or maybe we've brought up a topic that's made you think of something that will help you choose your next rifle scope. And go ahead and check out our scope line, because hopefully there's something there for you. Thanks for watching. See you next time.